today's video, I want to chat to you guys about some practical help that's out there for accountants. Good day. My name is Heinrich Rubier. I'm the owner of SA Accounting Network and I've been in the accounting industry since 2008. I know there's a lot of accountants out there that's watching my videos and I really appreciate you guys. I've realized over the years that no accountant is an island and we need each other to be able to succeed in this industry. Recently, I had the privilege to work with a group of tax consultants, or actually a group of lawyers called Tax Consulting South Africa, and they've got a partner network which they call the Professional Partner Network, or in short they call it PPN. And just to be able to belong to these guys made such a huge difference to my practice. I actually had the privilege, which I'm going to share with you guys now, to do an interview with the owner of Tax Consulting South Africa. His name is Jerry Botha. And it was such an honor just to speak to this guy. And yeah, so that's actually the purpose of the video. I want to introduce you guys to the Professional Partner Network. So have a look at the interview that I had with Jerry. Remember to like the video and to subscribe to my channel as well. Have a look at the video, please. I think a gem that I came across quite recently, or that I had the privilege of working with these days, is a network called the Professional Partner Network of Tax Consulting South Africa. And I've got the privilege this morning to have Jerry Botha with me. And we're just going to be talking a little bit about the network, of how it works and stuff. Jerry, do you want to maybe introduce yourself quickly?
Thank you. Yeah, and thanks for having me. I'm the managing partner of Tax Consulting. I think we've been around for about 17 or 18 years now. Yeah, I think our business has just evolved from being literally, like I presume many accountants and tax advisors out there, as working from literally your boardroom table, because that's where you should start.
Yes.
And I think in the days that I left when I left the big four firms, I made myself two promises. The first promise is one is no timesheets, and second one is no staff. And unfortunately, I think the first promise I broke was no staff after they introduced e-filing into South Africa. And I worked in UK e-filing when they introduced that system, so I knew how well that worked. And when I typed in, I think it was the 17th or 18th time that you retyped the same password in, and it still said it doesn't match, which I knew it was matching, I decided this is the time for my first staff member.
Yes.
So there we've evolved from, and now we kind of have that Professional Partner Network, which is a great collaboration between professionals. And privileged to be here and got through COVID.
Yeah, for sure. I think maybe just a little bit of background. I was thinking while I was preparing for this interview, I was thinking back, in terms of about 15 years ago when I started my practice, and how the tax world looked back then. If I picked up a client and I had an issue, I could still go into a SARS branch. We used to go to the Boksburg offices. You would go speak to the nice lady in one of the offices there and say, listen, I've got this issue with the VAT return. She'll jump on the phone, she'll speak to somebody. And I still remember that SARS actually even had a legal department where you could actually phone the offices in Alberton and you could speak to one of the SARS lawyers and say, listen, this is the issue. They said, no, just do this or do that. So they were very accommodating back then. And I think that's almost the danger of working with technology, is that you start losing that personal touch. I was just in preparation of this, I came across an article that I remember seeing beginning of the year where SARS employed 250 call center agents, and but they basically school leavers, and these guys know nothing about tax. And I mean, now these are the people that's supposed to help us as tax practitioners. They are first point of call. So quite often you either don't get through to the call center. If you do get through, the guy can't help you on the call center. And I think that is where one of the big needs come in, to be able to partner with a company like Tax Consulting South Africa, because we're going to talk about some of the benefits just now, but that you're backed by not just one accountant. You've got like a group of like 150 lawyers and stuff that's standing behind you that can help you if you run into trouble, because I think that is something that we're going to see more often. I think, so I think that you guys are doing a really wonderful job. I really want to commend you for the work that you're doing, just not for the accounting profession, but I think for tax in general,
Yeah, thank you for that. I think South Africa is not unique. So when I worked in the UK, your first job in tax is you're the guy that has to call Her Majesty's Revenue Service. and you want help with a matter, and then you get passed from one person to the next, and about after, let's say, 45 minutes, when you're at number 7 that you've been passed around to, all very British or very polite, then the call drops.
Yes.
Then you have to recall again and kind of go through that process.
Yeah.
And I think eventually you just get so upset by the time that you call the third time after that, you are like so angry at the first person that you speak with. And then what happened is then they ended up kind of remarkably helping you better the moment that they get you to the right, you need to speak to the right person.
Yes.
So I don't think it's unique in South Africa that you have to work through a call center. I don't think it is unique that you need to have a system, that you call and deal with somebody that is not a real consultant, so to speak. I also come from the days where you could engage directly with the SARS official that actually knew a bit of tax, but that is not that world has evolved, because I think there was great examples there of guys that got stuff done that you should not have got done.
Yes, that's also true.
And I think it makes sense that it is hidden from you who gets a case allocated to, or who deals with the matter.
Yes.
And I do think there was a lot of untoward stuff there in terms of personal relationships with certain people that got stuff sorted out. So I'm not completely against the system that was. I also do appreciate that the call center person is just as good to tell you what's on the system, and I mean, it's very frustrating if it then gets forwarded to somewhere else. Our firm's strategy is not really to try and argue for a better system, because if you speak to UK advisors or US advisors or Mauritius advisors, they're all in the same boat. This is the world of technology.
Yes.
India is even worse.
Yes.
I think the next layer is rather in terms of educating your clients to say, listen, to be successful, you need to change your approach too.
Yes.
As SARS have changed its approach, you need to change your approach. So the first thing, for example, if we take on a client at the moment, is we insist that we do a proper diagnostic on a client.
Yes.
And that means literally going to check on the CIPC records how many companies these guys have started from university days, doing a whole financial check in terms of all the policies and stuff that's on record, because that's the stuff that SARS sees. And if you don't do that at that stage, the client is not willing to accept that initial stage, then what happens is they started, and we all have stories like this, they started a company when they just articled with a couple of mates, got it deregistered, paid for the deregistration, that person never informed SARS. We all know that SARS records and CIPC records do not align.
Yes.
Not our problem, but it doesn't align. And there's a debt arising there because of non-filing of returns. And one day they're after this individual for that money.
Yes.
And that guy immediately comes to you and says, why did you not pick this up or know about it?
Yeah.
And then that historical problem becomes yours.
For sure.
So I think there's a big game there in terms of that as tax advisors or accountants, we need to adjust with the times.
Yeah.
And if you don't adjust, then I think you put yourself at great risk because others will do it better.
Yes. Yeah, for sure. I think a topic for another day might be talking about engagement letters. I think that's really important, for accountants to have it in place, and for clients actually to understand what's in an engagement letter and why it's important. That the clients that you actually deal with, that they give you full disclosure of what's happening in their financial affairs. So I think there's many different cases of
half of them don't know their financial affairs.
Yes.
The more money they've got, the more interest they've got.
Yeah.
The least they they know of all the loose ends
Yes.
that's around, I think.
Yeah, for sure. One of the things that I normally speak to, when I get a new client or whatever, I always make them aware that as a general tax practitioner, that I know a little bit about everything, but I don't specialize in a specific area. And I think, I always compare to a doctor. If you go to a GP and you walk into this office and there's something funny in his skin, and that doctor's not sure what's happening, then he's going to refer you to a specialist. And you're not going to think that guy's a bad doctor because he doesn't know what the answer is. And I think in the tax world, we're seeing this more and more happening at the moment, where we actually come across stuff. We see something funny on a balance sheet, or we see there's a funny transaction, and we're always not 100% sure. And I think that's the time when we actually refer people to a specialist. And I was just thinking about this. My first interaction that I had at the Gaza Tax Consulting in South Africa, one of my clients was selected for VAT diesel refund audit. And I've never at that stage even heard of that. I know that they were managing their schedules and the logbooks and all that type of stuff. But then I just realized, listen, for me as a general tax practitioner, I don't even know where to start with this audit. And that's when I started reaching out. And I think I was very lucky to get hold of Darren Brits. He's one of the guys at Tax Consulting. And this guy just took my hand and he walked me through the whole process. And he helped us to compile all the documents that SARS needed. And we actually sent it through to Darren first. He made sure everything was in order, told us what to rectify and to change. And then after that, we sent it through to the SARS audits. And I think that was probably one of the smoothest audits that I've ever been through. So I think that is where there's a lot of value for general tax practitioners to actually belong to something like the Tax Consulting South Africa, to the Professional Partner Network. So maybe, I think in a nutshell, we're not going to go into depth of it, but if you just look at all the different services that you guys offer at Tax Consulting South Africa, do you maybe just want to mention a few perhaps?
Yeah, so I think the history to our service, you need to kind of understand the shape of our firm.
Yes.
So I think one of the first things I kind of realized in my world, rightly or wrongly, it's absolutely ridiculous that you've got an alternative dispute resolution process that gets chaired by a SARS person.
Yes.
And that SARS is not bound to the finding of that adjudicator. That just should not be. And you should also not have a service monitoring office like in the old day that's within SARS.
Yes.
So we as a business decided, listen, enough with this, all these steps, because they all take time. And then you go to the tax ombudsman, which is also, SARS is not bound to the tax ombudsman, it's also seconded people from SARS. And there's a massive, massive amount of professional time that gets lost in going through that process. And that process, nothing there is designed in that process to in my view, humbly hold SARS accountable. I mean, the tax ombudsman had an investigation into SARS at one stage where their favourite manoeuvre was, when you objected, to declare your objection invalid. What is that? And now I know a section of the law allows them to do it, but everything is there that should be there. Oh no, we just declare it invalid. You have to restart again. Then you go to your client and explain, no, objection is invalid, you have to restart it again. They've got so many days, and just declare it invalid again. So the problem that you've got in terms of that world is that if you go through that, if you agree to participate in that process, it kills your practice and it kills your client. So Darren is a litigation attorney.
Yes.
And he understands litigation. And that is when you engage with SARS, even in the audit process, you provide documents and stuff that shows that you are litigation ready.
Yes.
You do right from the start. You've got that end in mind.
Yes.
And then you can have the mindset to say to that SARS auditor, listen, we can do this thing the easy way, or we can do it the hard way. But if they declare an objection invalid for me, we give them another chance. Next day.
Yes.
Third time. Serve them, we're going to go to the High Court. Not once have we been to the High Court. And we've done hundreds of those.
Yeah.
It is the panado that fixes the illness of thinking, oh, I'm just going to declare it invalid. No reasons.
Yes.
Do we do ADR? Never. Why? Why would you do ADR? Why would you go through that process where they take how long to appoint a facilitator whose SARS is then not bound to their own facilitator's decision? If we've got a case to make, we'll go to court to make that case. Why not?
Yes.
SARS don't like that, but it is hugely efficient. And
Yes.
that is just, I think, in a world where if you're a SARS official and you are in a place, in a position where you are under pressure and you're not happy because you've not got an increase, even though I see all public officials got very generous increases, but not SARS officials, which is just incredible. And let's just assume you do kick something down the road and something comes across your desk where these guys are litigation ready and litigation fit, and that whole heads hit you. It's not a little hand drafted note by somebody or just filling in a form. They can say these guys are going to go to court. Where do you put something just on the back burner, and where do you decide this I have to deal with?
Yes.
And I think that is very good strategy for a tax practice.
Yes.
Is to follow that approach, because you simply get the correct legal result quicker. And we're not arrogant about it.
Yeah.
If somebody that listens to this video one day calls and says, we hear Jerry's point, but respectfully we completely disagree, we've got another way that you can also get to the correct legal result quicker, we'll say, please tell us. We love to learn something new. We spoke last time about the fact that we're not arrogant guys, we learn something new every day. But the litigation route, unfortunately, I think it's with us. And I think there's more of it to come. And I think if you do not have that quiver in your bow, then you will always be at a disadvantage compared if you have to do the whole invalid process, then ADR, then ombudsman. I don't even know that process.
Yes.
I just know, listen, guys, if you don't do your job, we go to court.
Yeah, for sure. Take the shortcut. Yeah, so I think just in terms of that, I've printed out a list. I did a little bit of research before the time, and I just want to read you guys a list of stuff that the guys at Tax Consulting SA actually does. And I think, just listen to the list and you'll realize that most of the stuff there is above the normal scope of normal tax practitioners out there. So I'm just going to read it quickly. So the first one was this advanced dispute resolutions that we were talking about, advanced tax rulings, commercial transactions and tax, cross-border tax, SARS penalties and interest, waiving of and reduction of that, the SARS audits, tax due diligence with mergers and acquisitions, tax planning, tax ruling applications, trust, VAT refunds, VDP applications. I think just in those couple of words, there's so much depth there, and I think most normal tax practitioners will find themselves in deep water if they had to venture into that type of stuff. And I think that is where there's a real big benefit to belong to something like the PPN.
Thank you. We do believe so. And we equally believe we will be in equally deep water if you ask me the depths of filling an individual tax return,
Yes.
or doing a recon on a 501 on a payroll on certain things.
Yeah.
So we don't look at that.
Yes.
And I think the reason we don't look at that is that a lot of our tax guys, they are not interested in what they would call month-to-month work or filing returns. They are interested, they feel they've studied as long as a doctor, sometimes even longer, and they're technocrats.
Yes.
And they're not interested in that type of work. They're interested in the dispute work, the
Yes.
complex work, the international work.
Yeah.
And I think that is a personal choice for any professional.
Yeah.
If you're in the tax world, you either end up with Big Four law or accounting firms, or as a tax manager,
Yes.
or your own practice, or with SARS. I guess
Yeah.
that is kind of your high-level headings under which you can fall. Apologies if I'm forgetting one.
Yes.
But in our firm, we really are suitable for guys that said, listen, we get drawn to the complexity.
Yes.
We get drawn to the to the novel work, the unique work. It excites us if we do SARS rulings that nobody else have ever got.
Yes.
And a lot of those rulings are credited to us.
Yeah.
And that's the stuff that we enjoy.
Yeah.
And I think in the process, from a professional partner network, we also answer the question then in terms of how would people know we don't take their clients? Well, we won't, because most of their work and the client need is the normal, reliable, correct, compliant stuff.
Yes.
And we're not geared for that so much.
Yeah.
We're geared for the complex.
Yeah, for sure. So do you maybe want to give a little bit of background of how the professional partner network was birthed, or what was the idea behind it? How did it come to?
Well, I think it kind of has got an international component and a local component.
Yes.
So locally, we just had some accountants and people that approached us to say, listen, we've got a client, it's been our client for a long time. They've got a complex matter.
Yes.
So we are up against a decision, do we try and help the client, even though we're not quite fit in doing it? We could probably figure it out, but we're not fit in doing that.
Yes.
So that you kind of are very professional in thinking that way, because you analyze whether you are fit and proper for that specific piece of work. And they kind of say, listen, we can all read the law, we can all call SARS and find out, but we don't really know how to do this. And this is a big ticket item. That's one option. Or alternatively, we can tell the client, listen, we can't help you. And then they go somewhere else. But that somewhere else is going to try and wrap up all the other tax work, and we will probably end up losing that client.
Yeah.
And that kind of come to us is, can you just help us with this specific item? And we said, we love this. We don't have to, we don't really take on the client with a long-term view. We don't need to maintain that relationship or know about all the other stuff. We can just go after the little part that we love.
Yes.
And the accountant or the tax practitioner can just kind of safely get that dealt with, which they don't want to touch.
Yeah.
And we just thought, but that's good marriage.
For sure.
And from there, we've just kind of formalized that.
Yeah.
And we haven't just formalized it in South Africa, we've formalized it in 54 countries around the world. It helped us to get a significant engagement from one of the banks now, because we literally could go to what we would call best in market in African countries and around the world, and kind of go with that best in market. And that is there's a whole discussion around that in the Big Four world, because the Big Four, historically, where I come from, you would go to clients and say, listen, we're the Big Four, we've got this brand, we're everywhere. And you might have the best Kenya tax practice in Kenya by a mile. But your Tanzanian practice that's just next door are absolutely horrific. And that practice is just actually another practice that you gave your name to, because two other practices before didn't make the cut, so you kicked them out.
Yes.
So there's a little bit of window dressing there. And we said, listen, why do we go to a route where we try to pretend to be the best everywhere? Why don't we just go and pick what the market perceives to be the best guys everywhere? And we do that both for tax as well as even for something like work visas. And the reason we do work visas is because work visas is the pre-step before somebody moves internationally.
Yes.
So if anybody brings somebody to me, a foreign national, to South Africa, and we can get that work visa done correctly, that work visa impacts that employment contract, impacts that remuneration, impacts the tax treatment.
Yes.
And you will just save your client so much money and so much effort by doing that thing or those things correct.
Yeah.
And our law is drafted in a very strange way around this. It doesn't make sense, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
If you pay a foreign national to South Africa a housing allowance, it falls under paragraph C of the gross income definition. It's fully taxable nothing can save you.
Yes.
If you provide exactly the same accommodation that he would have rented in his own name, provided to him, and you provided accommodation for him under a certain set of terms and conditions, and the company pays it directly, it goes into paragraph I, into 9.7 of the 7th schedule, first 25,000 exempt for the first 2 years.
Yeah.
A pure mathematical sum, whether you do an allowance route or whether you do a fringe benefit route.
For sure.
And there's many examples in the Income Tax Act of that, of how the Act is just constructed, that it all depends on the angle from which you attack it.
Yes.
And you
sure.
need work visas for that. You need Forex for that. I think a lot of tax practitioners, accountants leave a lot of money on the table by not getting involved in saying, but we can offer all of those.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so I think as we were talking now, I can see just by that one simple discussion that we were talking about, just some of the benefits, of belonging to the professional partner network. In preparation of the interview, I just made a short list. I think one of the things is to be able to serve clients with confidence, because you know that you can cross-sell certain things, like, let's say, for instance, like the service they were talking about, visa applications. We're talking about just the backing that you've got. How many people do you have at the moment here at the office?
I think we probably between 120, 30 to 150,
Yes.
depending on where we are. That's the professional staff component
Yes.
of our business.
Yeah.
So we kind of humbly think we're the largest independent tax practice in South Africa.
Yeah.
But I mean, that is by no means our number one thing in our business. Still remains absolute competency of resources.
Yeah.
If anybody out, a permanent shout out, if anybody knows of a great young mind that still has got traditional values and work hard and passionate about what they do, they should send their CV to us for a bit of free advertising for us.
For sure.
And I think we encountered the same with SARS.
Yes.
Your efficiency with SARS depends a lot on the SARS official that you're dealing with.
That's true.
You get some of them that is exceptionally good.
Yeah.
And you get others that I don't think has ever seen the Income Tax Act in their life.
For sure. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so I think those are some of the benefits, that you're working with a big firm. I remember I went up to Johannesburg a while ago and I did an interview with Thomas Loban, and the girl that met me at the door, she took me through, introduced me to a couple of people, and her name is Roxanna Naidu, I think.
Yes.
And so I was talking to this girl and we're chatting, and then afterwards I looked at the email signature and I saw that she's like an admitted attorney in the High Court or something. So this girl is not just like any normal girl. Most of the people that work there are highly qualified people, So
Roxanna is very special. I mean, she's also an admitted attorney. She's a tiny by stature, but she grew up in criminal law in KwaZulu-Natal. So she's as tough as nails when it needs to be.
Yeah.
But you would not see that side.
for sure.
And yeah.
And so it's good, yeah. So they've got good quality people working there. So I think maybe just to start wrapping everything up and just putting it together. If I'm looking at this video now, I'm a tax consultant, I've got a small accounting practice, and I decide this thing is for me. How do I get involved? Is there a place where I can register to become part of the network? Is there cost involved? Just how is it structured?
Listen, firstly, there's no cost involved. I mean, we're there to help. I've through the years have had many referral agreements in place where we'll just send one another work. That never works. Yes. We always need to find a way that we also can let the accountant also get compensated for their time and their contribution that they make to it.
Yes.
So whatever matters that comes to us, it's not just fully ours. We kind of work with the practitioner, and we just do our bit and they do their bit, and they end up normally making more money out of that than what they would anyway. Otherwise, it must be a win-win.
Yes.
If it's not a win-win, why are we doing it?
For sure.
So there's no cost involved. I think Roxanna really is the key, and perhaps you can just share her details.
Yes.
And normally, what she will just try to understand is what is the matter involved.
Yes, so thanks for watching. It's such a privilege just to sit and touch base with these type of guys. You know, if you've got them on your side, you've got backing of professionals, you've got access to that hub of resources, if you want to call it that way. So I really want to encourage you guys, if you haven't touched base with the guys of Tax Consulting SA, send them a message, get in touch with Roxanna. She will get you guys signed up, and remember to mention my name as well so that they can know where it's coming from. Thanks for watching. Remember to like the video and to subscribe to my channel.